Are you on the fence about hiring remote full time? Are you already hybrid? Are you a fully remote team? In this episode, this is part one of a series where we're going to break down some of the pros and cons, best practices for hiring, growing, retaining, and developing a remote team. So, in the very first episode here, we just break down some of the pros and cons of hiring remote teammates. We've been remote for over 7 years, hybrid. And so, we're going to share some of the best practices that we've learned, along with some of the things we're learning to try to continue to improve. And we're going to build on that over the upcoming episodes where we talk about everything from recruiting to performance management to terminations and everything in between. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please make sure you subscribe, rate us 5 stars on your player of choice, and let us know what we can do to provide more valuable content for you and your payroll company. Let's go.
Welcome to Payrollin', the show where you will learn how to operate and grow your payroll business from the most dynamic minds in the business. If your company offers payroll services, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Matt Vady. Let's go.
Are you tired of dealing with payroll? Would you just like to finally get out of this industry and start focusing on what you actually do best, whether you're a CPA, healthcare broker, whatever your core discipline is? You started offering payroll services because you thought it would be a great value add. And then you quickly realized, well, this is consuming way more time for not enough money than I originally thought. Did you know that we are actively acquiring payroll books of business? We would love to work with you to identify if we can help you to partner with the right group that makes sense for an exit for you, but creates consistency in how you continue to treat your clients. If you're interested in learning more about Guru's acquisition services, simply go to guru.co/acquisitions. That's GUROO.co/acquisitions. So growing a remote workforce is a trend that's been hyper accelerated over the last 2 years since COVID came into our lives. But this was something that was already starting to happen. So I think it's an interesting topic that we're going to explore over the next several videos and podcasts here as we talk about what you can do to do this efficiently, effectively, and be successful at it. There are a lot of challenges to growing a remote team. There's hiring, there's performance management, there's discipline, there's terminations, there's all the same normal stuff you have in growing a team, only with the challenge of doing it in a remote environment. So this is something where I still know a lot of you are on the fence of, should I hire remote employees? We've traditionally always been in the office, and I'm curious if this is right for us. How do we maintain security? How do we get the right people? How do we know if we can trust them? Whether that be just the folks we hire or what they're doing after we hire them. So a lot to dig into here. But today I'm just going to get into some of the pros and cons of hiring remote teammates. Is this a great experience for you? From my business, we have a hybrid approach. So we have a lot of folks that are in office here in Columbia, South Carolina. We have folks spread around the country, and then we also deal with folks around the world for a variety of different tasks. So this is something that I'm pretty well versed in. Our team's not tremendously huge, so I'm going to default to some experts on some other areas as well, because I want to learn alongside you. I want to get better at growing a remote team, being a great leader for my remote team, and providing them with everything they need to be successful, because that's ultimately my commitment to anybody that joins our team, is that you're going to be better when you leave here than when you started. So how can we do that when you're working from your home office or from a co-working space or whatever that might be? So today, let's dive into some of the pros and cons of hiring remote workers for those of you on the fence about whether or not you should hire remote teammates. So the first pro, and I'm just going to fire through a list of things here. So the first pro is the obvious one. This is access to a much wider talent pool. So a great example of this, I posted a job recently on Indeed.com. I posted it locally. I got about 5 applicants. I posted it nationally. I got about 300 applicants. And we're going to get into recruiting later in another episode, because recruiting is something that isn't just posting a job and filtering through the applicants. Recruiting is just that. It's actually going out and recruiting talent. But I think that's a really good example of just how much wider the talent pool can get when we go nationally versus, or even just East Coast. If you're on the East Coast and you want somebody in your same time zone, you're still going to open up a ton more options when you go remote versus in office. And obviously this is a very in vogue thing that people are looking for right now. You've heard about the Great Resignation. So that means that there are a host of folks that have been asked to come back into the office that don't want to come back into the office. So you can be opportunistic in acquiring talent and providing a remote advantage. Next pro is going to be cost containment. So this is for you as the employer. It's a lot easier to scale without having to worry about physical space requirements. It's also estimated that you're going to spend about $2,000 per year per employee who is in the office. And there's also cost containment on the employee side. It's going to reduce their costs for having a job. They don't have to pay for lunches. They don't have to, well, I mean, still they have to eat, but they're not going to go out nearly as much. They're not going to pay for the gas to commute back and forth, or for the bus ticket, or for the subway ticket. They're not going to have to worry about traffic. They're not going to have to worry about parking. And so it's going to eliminate some of that stress and cost when we look at a cost containment perspective of how it's going to work for your employees. There are some other things when we look at the pros. It's also going to reduce some of the wasted time. This is a bit of a pro and a con when we look at it, right? So no water cooler talk means that people are going to be more productive. They're going to be at their desk working, the minute that they decide that their day starts, or that you have your requirements in place. But this creates another problem that I'll list out on the con side. When we talk about one of the biggest cons for me with a remote hybrid team is keeping the culture alive. And it's funny because I used to worry about, I'd walk around and be like, man, what do I got to do to get these people back to work? They're over here chit chatting for 20 minutes and, it's time to get stuff done. But now I'm sitting here going, how do I get these people to chit chat more? They don't talk as much socially as they should. They're not getting to know each other enough, not developing our culture the way I would like. So the grass is always greener, right? But it is a unique paradox in that we are struggling now to create those collisions of our teammates, and we have to be more intentional about it because they're not just going to bump into each other out in the hallway or passing by each other's offices. So definitely a pro of more focused work, less distractions. But when we get over to the con side, let me ask you a question. Are you the go-to person in your market for payroll and HR? Are you the first face and name somebody thinks of when they think about who am I going to refer this person that needs help with their payroll and HR support? If not, you might want to look into our executive LinkedIn management service through Underdog Digital. Underdog Digital is a sponsor of this show, and they've seen results such as, I'm looking at one profile right here where over the course of 6 months, they increased views by over 200%, more than 600,000 views on these posts in less than 6 months. Another one, plus 1,000% increase in 8 new conversations in the first 30 days. This is a tremendous service to help you to become the go-to person for payroll and HR outsourcing in your market. They create content for you, engage with other people in your space, send connection requests, and do outreach to generate conversations that do nothing more than create valuable relationships with your target audience. If you're interested in learning more about Underdog Digital's executive LinkedIn management service, go to underdogdigital.co. That's underdogdigital.co. There's some unique distractions to being at home, right? So whether that's children, whether that's pets, whether that's your neighbors, whether that's the, service people coming by, the cable guy coming by to fix those things. So distractions are different. So that's not necessarily just a sole pro of less distractions from working at the house. There are definitely ample distractions of working from home, which fall into the con side as well. So pros, we're also seeing some data starting to point towards increasing retention of employees when allowing them the opportunity to work remotely. I think this is something that may be a little bit immature in the data set because we're talking about something that we're looking over the last 3 years, which was heavily impacted by COVID. I'd like to see how this plays out because we have a lot of folks that maybe think they like to work from home because they've only had to do it for a short period of time, but might start to feel the isolation of that over the long term. So definitely a pro for now. A lot of data pointing towards, and once again, one of the things that we'll talk about when we look at the hiring component of this is you have to know the people that you're hiring in the respect of what is the right thing for them. So just because they say they like remote better than in office, what's the reality of that and why do they like it? And so hiring people who have some experience working remotely is definitely a great idea when you're looking at hiring folks. I don't want to get off on too many tangents here, which I can in each one of these. But basically, like I said, I'm going to layer this out over the next several episodes of HR Simplified, where we're going to get into the hiring, the recruiting, the culture building, performance management, all that fun stuff one at a time. So, one other thing that's worth mentioning is obviously it's a lot better for the environment if people are working remotely because there aren't as many carbon emissions. We're not having folks commuting to and from work. We're having less things, especially if you're driving all over. If you got salespeople, I think about our salespeople that used to run up and down the road all day, every day to go to sales meetings that are now doing the bulk of those over Zoom. That's a tremendous advantage to the environment and definitely something worth mentioning. So lots of great pros when we look at the pros for the remote work side. Let's look at some of the cons. So the culture we talked about, it can be hard to manage. It can get a little loose on you. It's harder to define. One of the things that I'm a big advocate for is being very intentional about culture. So that's one of the things you have to be extra intentional when everybody's remote because you don't have control over, the influences around them. And it's not about control necessarily, but it is about, hey, how do I keep my culture top of mind? In the office, we have these things that you see, these, the quotes on the walls, the symbols, the teammates doing the thing. So it's hard to manage a culture in a remote environment. You have to be incredibly intentional about it. It's also a little bit harder to get people to collaborate. Once again, you have to be intentional. You have to create collisions. We're forcing people, hey, grab 15 minutes with somebody this week that you don't work with very often. Make sure that you're, getting to know them on a personal level, that you guys are reconnecting. Just because you're in marketing and this person's in finance and you don't talk very often, there's no reason for you to talk on a day-to-day basis. We've got to force that collision. And, some people love it, some people don't love it. But as they start to get into those one-to-one conversations with people, they realize, oh, I'm actually really glad I got that 15 minutes on the calendar with this individual because otherwise I don't know about all the stuff happening in their life and in their work life. And it's just great to reconnect. So it's also, the pro side of people are more productive from home. There's definitely a lot of data pointing to that people are more productive, but there's also, we've all seen the dude wandering around the neighborhood all day, doing all this stuff around his house, when we were remote, and we're like, oh, what's his deal? Does he have a job or what? No, he's just kind of taking advantage of the remote work situation. And he's, taking advantage of being at home and not getting as much done. So not everybody's more productive at home. And that's something that, is a little bit harder to manage and lean towards. And we're going to talk about that in a future episode as well. And then for us, one of the big things is time zones can just be a challenge. So we've got folks, most of our US-based staff is in Central to Eastern, but we deal with it with our offshore teammates as well. We have folks that deal, web developers that work offshore, and they're in different time zones, and designers as well. And so it can be a challenge of when we're getting work done. And so that's one of the definitive cons. But I'm interested to hear, what are some of the pros and cons you would add to that list for working remote? And have you decided to leverage the opportunity? I view this as a huge opportunity personally for us in our business to be able to grow and scale by taking advantage of what is now effectively a global workforce at our disposal. And how we go about doing that is something that I'm wildly curious about getting better at. And I'm looking forward to learning from you. So please drop a comment below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can stay involved in all these videos we are putting out at the remote work culture component of running your business. And we look forward to hearing more from you. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll talk to you next time. If you enjoyed that episode, please share it with someone else you know who might enjoy it and learn from this. And also, please rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast player. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And also, don't hesitate to reach out with other topics you'd like to hear more about. Thanks so much.